The Saudi-funded LIV Golf League's dramatic saga continues to unravel as the series trades blows with the PGA Tour. However, despite the golf giant's attempt to suspend players from its tour, it looks like other authorities like the USGA haven't chosen a side yet. In fact, they've even allowed the LIV players to take part in the US Open. How did the PGA even let that happen? Well, keep watching to find out. First up, PGA Tour continues to lose its grip over golf. Before we even begin to dissect whatever went down at the US Open, we need to talk about the insane effect that the LIV Golf Series has had on the PGA. Like, hasn't it been insane to see how the mighty PGA Tour, once touted to be the only great golfing authority in the entire world, continues to fall from grace? And honestly, the Saudi Golf League quick entry has been super fascinating because something like this hasn't happened in golf for decades. We mean the last time we saw such a massive shift in power was perhaps when the PGA Tour itself was formed. Of course, this doesn't mean that there hasn't been a challenger trying to claim the tour's throne in the past. In fact, if anything, we've seen people try that same thing that LIV is doing countless times. For instance, back in the 90s, there was a real risk of a World Golf Tour uprooting the PGA's operation. Oh, and the funny thing is that Greg Norman was at the helm of that coup as well. But obviously it never came to fruition because the Pro Golfers Association just ended up destroying it by introducing newer prize pools and tournaments for players. The breakaway Saudi League, though, is a very different beast. For starters, they've got the backing of the Saudi government, which basically means infinite money. So even if they run into hurdles set up by the PGA, they can easily navigate through by throwing money at the problem. And on top of that, there's been growing resentment against the PGA Tour over the past few years because of players' media rights and other things. As a matter of fact, the entire reasoning behind Phil Mickelson's exit from the tour was the fact that they didn't grant him access to his own media and made him pay $1 million. Yeah, $1 million to take part in the match event. Next, the Saudi Golf League just has way too much money. Now, it's not like the PGA Tour has just hoisted the white flag and given up. In fact, they've been fighting tooth and nail to make sure that they somehow nip the LIV Golf Series right in its bud. But the truth of the matter is that the Saudis have just got way too much influence and money, and nothing seems to be working for the PGA right now. For context, it started with the tour saying that they'd ban any player who takes part in a competing tour on North American soil. However, despite the fact that the first LIV International event was set in London, they decided to go ahead with their decision and suspend all 17 players who were competing there. Obviously, the hope was to deter any future defectors from leaving the PGA in pursuit of money and curtail the new league's momentum. But when we're talking about literally billions being poured onto something, it definitely seems like you're up against an immovable object. Like, even after the whole suspension saga, top golfers like Brooks Koepka have continued to leave in droves, with no sign of the movement slowing down anytime soon. Also, the fact they could participate in the US Open after being suspended by the PGA Tour was just an insult to injury. Really? And does the USGA not like the tour anymore? Or is there something else at play here? Well, isn't that the $1 million question? Or should we say multi-million dollar question? So let's get into it. Now, the USGA shocks everyone by allowing golf rebels. When the USGA announced that it wouldn't prevent the LIV Golf Series players from taking part in the US Open, it obviously sent shockwaves across the entire golf community. Like, not only were they defying the PGA Tour's decision to suspend its players, but also setting a new precedent for how events deal with such situations. Of course, at the same time, many people were left confused about how the players could compete in the US Open in the first place, despite their suspension. So if you're one of those, here's the rundown. Basically, the US Open is an independent event that's operated by the USGA, which means that even though it's a major, the PGA Tour doesn't actually have a say in any of its matters. As a result, we saw players like Dustin Johnson and Phil Mickelson during the US Open weekend, which raised a lot of eyebrows. Plus, many people are also questioning whether the tour had lost its influence and power over these independent events after the entry of a true competitor. Thankfully, though, the USGA chief had all the answers for us. Next up, the USGA chief justifies his decision. Now, if you look at other traditional tours and events, they've mostly followed the PGA Tour's decision. As a matter of fact, some, like the DP World Tour, have even doubled down and imposed fines on their players on top of the sanctions. So there are definitely a lot of moving parts in the golf world. However, the USGA prides itself on being the most open championship in the world. And this means that even if you're not associated with any significant golfing entity, you can still make it into the tournament by simply qualifying and climbing the ranks. So according to the United States Golf Association CEO, Mike Wan, it would have been unfair and inappropriate to ban players just on the basis of their lucrative contracts with another competition. Of course, he admitted that they did have a long conversation about following the PGA Tour's decision, but ultimately, it didn't sit well with the association's own philosophy. Wan also went on to explain that it's difficult to outright ban players just because they're taking part in an event that's linked to the notorious notorious Saudi government. Like, if they started doing that, then there are plenty of other competitions that they'd have to take a look at too, including the PGA Tour. Also, let's not forget that the US Open has over 9,000 entrants that come up through the ranks to qualify for the big event. So even if they did decide to run a thorough background check, it would have been almost impossible to go through every single one of them. But things might change come the next US Open. With the current state of golf, things seem to be changing at the speed of light. So in all honesty, we don't know what the situation would be like when the US Open rolls around next year. And that seems to be Mike Whan's thinking as well. Speaking to the press after the tournament, he said that there's a pretty good chance that they'll discuss things with the PGA and everyone else again for next year's event, which could potentially change their final decision as well. In fact, he even gave a hint of what's to come by saying that these talks could make it more difficult for LIV Golf members to take part in a future US Open event. However, at the same time, he admitted that no one really knows what's going on right now and that these things can change on a daily basis. For instance, the LIV Golf of today is a very different beast from what it was only a few months ago after the whole Mickelson drama. Now they hold a lot more power and have even applied for recognition in the official world rankings. Whan then went on to finish his speech by saying that he's a bit saddened by the current state of golf, not entirely because of LIV Golf, but just the overall rift that's being perpetuated by everyone. And according to him, the sooner we come to terms and learn to coexist, the better it'd be for the game. After all, it's kind of stealing all the thunder away from the actual good stuff that's happening on the course. So can anyone stop the LIV Golf Series? Now, obviously, if you're someone who likes old school golf, then you'd probably side with the PGA Tour. Also, no matter what side you're on, this endless saga has just kind of sucked the soul out of the game. Judging by how Greg Norman and Jay Monahan continue to fight though, the end really doesn't look like it's going to arrive anytime soon. Oh, and just the fact that the official world golf ranking is probably going to allow LIV Golf athletes to earn world rankings points is enough evidence of how powerful the new upstart league has gotten. However, to be fair to them, disrupting the game and making it more exciting has been their motto right from the start. So they're only walking the walk here. And at the same time, the PGA Tour is just losing so much ground and its top players that it's hard to imagine any action that would deter everyone from defecting. But then again, crazier things have happened in golf. So for now, all we can do is sit down and watch. And that's a wrap for this video. Will the Saudi Golf League succeed in uprooting the PGA Tour? Let us know in the comments down below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.